The knowledge about and around the earth and all the heavens of the earth has to be involved in the earth. So the universe, any universe you can know, is involved in the earth or the earth realm or the earth world. And so everything there is to learn or worth learning is of the animals and trees and the beasts and the air. I could sit here and not as safe as maybe my grade 1 class, but it should be a safe place to learn, to speak. And who knows, you might have something to teach yourself under the trees somewhere, little baby tree, because you can feel pain and you have blood and everything about you is also of the earth. That's all you need to be a witch or whatever you want to be. A poet, a good person, someone who, despite being able to go along with the world, which is a good idea, can be apart from the world. Because the world needs that. It doesn't know it. And as demonic and awful as it is, it's the only world we got. And just taking some time away from it, keeps you safe. And then you can go back into the hydrofoil shambolic pandemonium of it all. Just skimming off your great parents' ancestral anal and ethereal juices. Skipping this way and that way. Words and stars and billions of yugas and starships and captains. I mean, it's all pretty interesting when you start putting it together. There's a lot that can be taught just by reading the most demonic connotations of literally anything, anyone, and everyone in the world. Because humans have brought so much stuff, you would say, into their particularly financial sense of themselves and what they're worth, whether you like it or not. And you don't have to beat the back of the worker, just say this is something that you like to be relieved of in general. If I was talking to a retard who's drunk, I was you like this, like an alcoholic who's drunk, you like being relieved of unnecessary labors. You don't have to live literally under debt in a way that's giving you spinal bifida of your ethical and childlike organs of celestial biology. It's okay. Stand tall like the trees. Stand alone if you can't stand tall, for alone you face the wind. And then you and those people, or all people, or your mother and father, back to the everlasting origins of your beautiful and celestial flesh and blood out of your own mother's womb, and all of the completion and joy that comes from the apathenic nature of the completion from which all light springs, as though everlasting to everlasting. And bring that to the world. Bring that in your voice and in your blood. There's a reason for living. Because you loved once, and those with you whom you love across time and space and torture that nobody could fucking comprehend. You're doing this. It's like you are the wings of the cosmos. You are the wings. Your heart and theirs. By truth and anger and rage and blood and spit and vomit, you and they are singing with the lords of creation and all that would make anyone safer than what they are, because people are so clearly enthralled with a particularly financial demand upon their very real flesh and blood that allows them to bring other things into the world, like anger and violence that comes to, anger's fine, but that comes to very, very bad outcomes at an industrial scale. So there's war and then there's war. If you include domestic abuse as war, how much war do you think there really is? If you take the industrial effects of all deception, unnatural debt, and torts of language and flesh, how deep are these wars? They are deeper than the deepest oceans. They are wider than the widest heavens. In fact, the heavens mark the extent of these wars. And the yugas mark the extent of these wars. And the fucking notes of Moonlight Sonata can mark the extent of these words. And that's hard for me to say because I was Frédéric Chopin. And I like Beethoven, but he's a bit of a depressed fuck. No, I have no recollection of Beethoven. I mean, I don't even think we were contemporaneous. But Mozart, man, that guy's pubic hair was a beautiful rusty red like you wouldn't believe. He wrote a little-known sonata called "You Pull the Strings of My Heart." Oh, you're funny, Mr. Man. All by yourself. You're funny, Mr. Man. Funny man. I used to say to my daddy, I bet you think you're a funny man. And then I took the lighter and I took one of his cigarettes and he just looked at me. And I was like 6 years old and I said, Daddy, I love smoking this shit. And your porn leaves a little to be desired. These women still have pubic hair, for God's sake. What happened to carpets? As someone who grew up in the 80s, what happened to carpets of all forms? It's like someone said, get rid of the carpets. We've had I Dream of Jeannie, and no one wants to see this woman unshaved. I mean, if anything, I watched I Dream of Jeannie now that I think about it, and I was like, I'd love to see that woman's pussy. You know, when she's in her magic lamp. You know, I'd like to look down there and see her pussy. She's sleeping with her legs wide open, you know, and there's like wind moving in and out of it, and a subtle perfume. And I start getting, it's like Alice in Wonderland. I get smaller and I go in and I go in. I'm like, and it just intoxicates me. And I have this beautiful, fantastical journey in a wonderland where everything is just romping around like beer. And a beautiful woman is in the distance, shaped like the rounding measures of the foothills of the heavenly citadels that lay beyond. I begin my journey with a little sandwich in my bag in a book called All You Need to Know for Dummies and also Chronic Masturbators. And it's like, whee! I had a dummy. Um, my mom didn't breastfeed me very much. She was tortured by the doctors who delivered me, and so was I. They were cannibals and sexual predators in a very old, decrepit hospital in Rochford, England. So, like Oliver Twist, I was saved from having too much consideration for my flesh and blood as I lay breathing fitfully as though suspended between unequally poised between one world and the next. And before I wrote one of my first books, I would read the first page of Oliver Twist over and over to myself. And so, in a sense, I committed it to my mind in a way that will last with me for the rest of my life. And it continues to inform me about, the power of satire, but also that it is an end to these realms. You'd be surprised, like, listening to me talk, that, literature is really quite a good end. Literature, classical literature is an incredible end to human suffering. But then all entertainment and media is usually. I should get going. I've been sitting here for way too long. It's deceptively warm because it's also cold, and I'm probably long overdue. But if I have one way to rationalize it, I think it's been a good conversation. What's love got to do? Got to do? I knew this woman who was in a Hindu cult about unconditional love, and I started singing this one day, and she's a rapist, by the way, and she just lost her shit. And I was like, what's love got to do? Got to do? What's love but a second-hand emotion? I should put this on my dating profile. See, I am spontaneous when I'm by myself talking about the demonic nature of the financial claims upon what you probably call love and I call rape. Have a nice day. Love is rape when a woman's in the way. Love is rape when a woman's in the way. Love is rape. Love is rape. Also, another four-letter word. I love you, I rape you. A poem for men. Please put this ring on my finger. I know that Venus wants something to stem the rising tide of hunger for your flesh and blood. That's love. For my next number, I'm going to trace the number 3 into my left testicle using only my mind, creating a tiny, minuscule laser that is going to touch in from the ethereal layers of the heaven and begin to inscribe this number through a steely kind of torture that will feel like tiny little munchkins trying to dig a trench or a latrine for the increasing tide of menstrual fluid being excreted by their girlfriends right into my ball sack. So it's going to mix in there, and I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to have some pretty crazy children, but let's go for it anyway. And you're thinking, that's not the reason you're going to have crazy stroke, but okay. Surgery's going good. We've made the initial cut, right? Oh, yes. Yeah, all right. Okay, now a little further. There it is. Oh, yes, 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 yes. My psychiatrist says I'm too intelligent. I'm too imaginative. And I spend too much time by myself, believing that my mind is doing something useful for society. I send her these videos, and she sends me back videos of her masturbating in front of her children. She says, this will be your new daddy if I can only control him through my psychiatric magic. No, she doesn't. I just make videos of her doing that because I put her on drugs. And I show them to her, and she goes crazy. I like to do that to psychiatrists. I like to make them crazy. I like to make them excited. You know, an excited psychologist or therapist is a happy therapist. Make your therapist happy and horny, and they'll thank you. And you can show your generosity by paying them thousands of dollars. It's like Scientology, only cheaper. I actually found the best therapist I ever had was a Scientologist. Isn't it interesting and funny? And do you know why? Because they found a way to listen to me. And I was 21, 22 years old. I went to work with my dad, got on the SkyTrain, went into Vancouver, Hastings Street, went to the Scientology, and they'd given me this young female who would show up on her bicycle across the street, economically advantaged, tight pants, beautiful ass, and she'd get off her bike. She'd walk in, and I would be like, hi, okay, let's do our session. And so in many respects, the first really attractive woman I'd ever been around that wasn't for the purposes of being banged up in an institution or, someone down the end of my street or whatever. Just an adult female. And as with most of the females I've been around since public school, she clearly had a bead on my testosterone. And so white women and teachers, they groom boys and they groom men to respond to female sexual energy under all kinds of seemingly, public education circumstances. This is just something that happens. Because humans think they're so sexually developed, but what they are is sexually perverted. And they don't even think about it. Why do you think people are breaking out in acne all the time? It's from hormonal imbalances, because they're in a hormonal war zone. Right? We're polluting them with, just like with the stuff that's supposed to help you grow, they're polluting you with the stuff that's supposed to help you grow. They're turning your body against itself. School induces an autoimmune disorder onto people, and they become sociopaths in order to survive it. Right? The sociopath, for something to work against anything, it has to first work against itself, because it violates natural law. Right? If I want to hurt you in public, I'm risking going to jail. I have to hurt myself. Right? Something bad's going to come back to me. So to get people to be aggressive enough to participate in what is overall an aggressive system, the financial system, they have to pull people out of their nature. They have to make them go against themselves. And say, well, how do you do that? Well, you're not supposed to know it. You're not supposed to feel it. You're just supposed to have it happen to you. And so in a sense, all that's happening when you go to school is life is happening to you. You're not doing anything wrong at all. And yet all the sociopaths in the world probably went to public school. Do you ever think about that? Right? A good scientist would say, because people don't recognize all the sociopathy, but let's say for the stuff that someone does recognize. Like, how often do you think they came out of public school, which has you at a time of your life which is suspiciously close to the most important and persuasive developmental epochs of your brain? Right? It's doctor, bring you home, daycare, school, That's, you would say, where has this person spent their time? Where has this brain been? And when you talk to female predators or scholastic people, who are usually females and stuff, they absolutely don't want to think about this. They don't think you have the right to even talk about it. It's like when I've gone to health food stores and they'll tell me, like, you don't know anything about your body. I tell you about your body. You don't know what minerals you need. People like me tell you that. Your body doesn't have any natural instincts about what you need or don't need. And you learn about the type of professionals you find in health food stores. And you look at the education system and so many women as well, telling you how you're supposed to feel. Right? You have no judgment of your own. You have no voice of your own, except they give it to you. They're showing you not just that you have freedom of speech, but what to say. Right? We need people to speak out about global warming. Pick any gender you want, but just don't speak to us like you grew up with your own sense of your own autonomy as someone who doesn't necessarily have to be molested by the school system and every other subsequent female of your life. Because look at the environment you're in. Right? It's completely artificial. It's designed to make you go against yourself like a cult while creating on a suit of armor or a sheath, commensurate with a shock-based psychosis that starts to form like an irritation in the mother's womb. To emulate, right, and to sustain at the level of true human judgment insults to your flesh and blood that prey on you. So that if you weren't a baby at 13 weeks, but you were like a 50-year-old Marine, you would go, fuck, what the fuck is happening? Fuck, call the government, call the president, let's fuck these people, right? Right, so you're allowed to be in pain when you're a 50-year-old Marine. But according to science, you're not allowed to be in pain when you're 13 weeks in your mother's womb. So I always look when people get rid of the voices of people who can have pain. You know that sexual molestation in the financial industry is involved. Right. It's the way teachers are trained, the way people are trained, is that you have no judgment of your own. There's no disease in the world that says, oh, that's the he doesn't like oppression in society and the school system disease. The cure is you get to stay home with your mom and dad. Yay! No one's ever going to have that disease. Because the only cure is the truth. The only cure is actually listening and not sexually molesting children. Right? Hey guys, here's a TV commercial from the future. Don't want to go to school? Don't want to get a job? Hey, you're my kind of guy or girl. Stay home and watch TV, and people like me will start to educate you about the true nature of body language and the human spirit. Your parents are like, what are you watching? The next thing you know, it's like, ring, ring. I'm not coming into work today. I've just had a sexual embolism watching this man on YouTube. Well, this has been fun. Yeah, I do think that, so I went into the Scientology building. They're like, dude, how did you pick up that point? As many points. They're all like many stars in the sky. And they're all pointed at me going, who the fuck are you? They're all turning around me. I am like the center in the wheel that must hold with all of the friction and torque of human stupidity. Hey. I am the fulcrum. I am the crucible. I am the light that has no darkness. I am the tree which falls down and makes no sound. I am the penis which hangs limp over the world and says, don't touch me. Anyway, I go in there, and it's the best therapy I ever had. This good-looking Scientologist. And I'm zit-faced, and I've never seen a woman's breast, and I'm having all the reactions that have been actually polluting me my entire life. But sitting there in this room, and I start to cry. It's like the first woman, I guess I felt, it's like, you can't keep it in anymore. I felt like because of my training in Scientology, I was ready to be fully honest. I was piqued by the literature. And I just cried. I think the first couple times I came there at like $200-300 a pop is just cry. The first person to ask me anything, her job to be there as far as I knew, was to take me through my time track and just get me talking. Of course they have a sort of way that maybe they want you to talk or things, but I just started crying. was the first person to ever ask me how I felt in my entire life. No teacher, no minister, no Christian, no uncle, no aunt had ever really found out anything about me or asked me how I felt about anything. In no place in my life, except maybe in my bedroom at night, did I ever feel comfortable crying or feeling anything. And when I did, I cried. I was living in a world of sociopaths, and I loved them. I didn't know the word sociopath yet. It was many years before I was writing in my journal and going, I think all of my family are psychopaths. I took Arthur Conan Doyle at his word. You know, the truth, however improbable, is the truth. You know, you don't know why, you don't know how, but this is how they behave. That's an ugly chord to sound in your life. You see why people don't want to put things in words. I mean, it could be true. You could convince yourself of it. It could be a very dark road to take yourself down, like methamphetamines. You don't want to start thinking about your family all being psychopaths. Not many people can be trusted with that knowledge. Right? I'm a very mature man. I wouldn't want a lot of people thinking that everyone around them is a psychopath. I'd be like, nope, we can't train a lot of people to think that way because they are going to fucking do something violent. There was nothing in me to think that because everyone's around me a psychopath, I have to become violent. No, it was like, now I know why I'm scared all the time. Now I know I'm anxious. Now I know why everything in my life has felt the way it did since I was a child. Right? And so much as people sometimes get given diseases, they say, oh, you know, a lot of young men who are abused are given the disease of schizophrenia or other diseases. Like, they're usually victims of sexual abuse. And their minds are peaked, and there's a neurosis that's been suffered, or at least a way of feeling and expressing themselves, or not being able to control their body or some kind of expression, attitude about their life, or reaction. Or basically the reaction of a victim that is a language that isn't spoken by the financial system or the predators or family around them, in advance of which they've prepared diagnoses of diseases like schizophrenia. Right? Does that sound barbaric to you? So I'm letting you know that what mental health workers do. They don't know it, but they're sexual predators. Right? So the financial system has designed a cult where people who have sustained surviving neuroses, or in so much whatever's called a neuroses, in a world where everyone's supposed to be psychotic, that doesn't speak, at least for them or anyone, the right amount of satisfying economic gibberish. Like learning to, you know, like a lot of psychopaths are just highly motivated people, right? As long as they're making money and they're fashionable and they've got the right, we just say, hey, you know, hey, John. You know, who knows what John fucking does and thinks, right? You might see a homeless man or someone like me walking like, oh, I wonder what that guy fucking does in the forest every day. But look at everyone around you. Look at every car on the highway. Look at everyone in your building, in your school, or in the bus next to you, or what do they fucking do with their time? You have no idea. The whole of human life is designed to hide the more predatory nature of human beings, in the language, in the fashion. So you start looking at human body language. You start looking at how people live and the effects of teachers and how they talk, and you listen to the system. You start to learn what it's saying, what it's not saying. And you experience violence like I have, and it emphasizes your learning. Because like violence is a lot of information. And so now the part of your life, a part of all of your knowledge is, how can I feel hurt? What has hurt me? And when I wrote about my parents and family being psychopaths, I was saying, well, I had already long acknowledged that I was really hurt. And it's like, this kind of accounts for how hurt these things are. And when you've had your shoulder dislocated, you know what hurt is. When your family is trying to have you arrested after they've dislocated parts of your body, and the police don't even believe that you've been hospitalized for these injuries. They don't even want to investigate. The fact that you've even mentioned it, and the fact that you haven't asked for them to arrest somebody, makes you look like a criminal. Because they don't believe anyone could be treated that way who wouldn't call the police. Right? And that's me. Right? My brother wouldn't have a career if I had reported him. But also, the level of aggression they're able to bring across is so acculturated and so sexually socialized and so acculturated that you start to open a file as to what types of seemingly social behavior permits people to be subtly dominant of other people. I mean, I'd be a really good feminist. I could teach in a gender studies fucking program, right? So to put it in that context, if I was talking to you and you felt that as a white male, I was essentially enjoying some kind of awful thing about that men like you do is being unnecessarily dominant. Something I think I made a mistake of one day is there was a woman, she was being perverted. You know, she was not a good person, but at some point she was a younger woman. Everything had settled down, and I said, hey, you'll probably make a good mother one day, because what she was doing was in the name of caring about someone, even though she was sexually molesting me. And she kind of looked death at me for a moment. I think I really bothered her, and I realized just after I said it that it was really sexist. You know, like for some reason I don't know why I'm trying to compliment her by saying, the logical result of her activities, such as they weren't really that virtuous, but such as they were, would be for her to have children. And in your mind it felt like, nice, nurturing, caring, obviously service oriented, smart. Like in my mind, being a mother meant all of anything that made you a good engineer or an astronaut, which is not a good save, but you know what I mean. I meant something nice about it. I didn't mean I wanted to be the mother of my children. But I guess in a way it could be interpreted sexually as well. Like you could open your legs to some nice man and pop out some children out of your beautiful little pussy and adequately take care of them. I mean, and so I realized this is how language, even if I didn't mean anything, I know that something evil I think probably came across. And the thing is that she had stirred up a lot of evil, and she had brought a lot of evil to that place. And I was just sort of it was just wicking off maybe some of the evil. And I was just when you don't see as much evil that's around you, you might, when something happens, you might all of a sudden, one day if you say something wrong to your partner, think about what happened to you that day. And be like, oh, I brought some evil home with me. I was in a situation that was really awkward and silly. I don't know why I said that. And you'll realize that your brain can actually go off when it's in violent circumstances. So that seemingly perfectly logical, nice statements. And you realize it's like walking on a log. How did I lose the ability to talk to my loved one? Why are they getting upset? Because something's coming across in your voice. We're like finely tuned instruments. And nothing is more finely tuned than people who are used to being around you when they like being around you. And all of a sudden, they don't feel good when you're talking to them. So you don't want to bring evil into your voice. That's why you need to notice people's body language. And I noticed her body language. And it's like, oh shit, that one did not go well. And at this point, even saying sorry wouldn't have made it better. So I just sort of left it alone. It's like, I'll take the hit on that one. You have the right to hate my penis for the rest of eternity. But, I can say I meant well to the end of time, but again, I think something evil, something very sexist sort of came across. Don't unnecessarily, oops. There we go. Just push down my can. It's like, there you go. It falls off every time I'm here. But, playful spirits. Yeah. I don't want to get too into the evil of it, but I mean, it was an evil situation. Young women get up to a certain amount of evil, unknowingly. And so they had drawn evil forces to that place because she had been acquainted with a certain part of the education system. And it educated her to, possession is 9 tenths of the law. So she was projecting, and she was as though possessed. She drew very evil people to the scene, like blood in the water, and I had to deal with all of that, ground it and everything. So, at the end of the day, she ended up, I think, just projecting all the evil onto me because she didn't get what she wanted. So understand, when you've been acquainted with the system, no matter what you're doing, you can have a hunger for human flesh. People call them Karens. What they really are is cannibals. Like, these are white women. These are the ones that are more noticeable, that are able to basically call down police officers or stuff on black men, on white men, and bring about evil circumstances for men because they demand a certain amount of flesh. If a police officer can arrest you, he can take your time, and that's your flesh and blood, right? Any evil that happens, you can make the best of it, essentially, but who wants to make the best out of being arrested? Oh, I gotta go. I don't think I've been standing here for over an hour, so time to move. I'll pay for it, but still, it's good video. Let's get going. Yeah, well, my hands are getting a little cold, so I called my mom, so it's good. Got the candle. I'm pretty sure those are furries or divas or something that do that. It happens usually at a particular moment when I'm talking about evil or something. So, ding, the can falls over. So anyways, okay, let's go. Sorry about this. God, I can't. I'm like a girl. All the shit that I'm carrying. Just gonna put my hands in my pockets. Just gonna put my hands in my pockets. Just gonna put my hands in my pockets. I did a dating profile. I do it. I have a lot of fun with these. I don't actually. I hate the dating sites now so much I can't go on with it. I just don't like what I see. Oh, playing sound. Some people think that's evil. And I said something like, I don't have any more responsibilities than a 7-year-old to describe my mentality, which is nearly true. It's like, I think to myself, the best time of my life, I said to my mom, is like, I'd love to go back to 1979, when I was about 5 years old, or 1977. Those were the best years of my life, 1977 to 1979. Awesome. No complaints. You are in such a passive state. I think the introduction to kindergarten introduced the first real, well, aside from daycare, my first day of daycare, introduced here in this country the first, public trauma. It was going to kindergarten was a big negative change in my life. And the kindergarten teacher introduced us to her pussy.